guys. Hi, everyone. I am really happy. I have Alexis with me, and I'm just going to pass it over to her to introduce herself to everybody.
Hi, my name is Alexis. I am from Canada, but actually currently living in Indonesia as an expat. I'm an English teacher, and I'm also a travel blogger and travel storyteller. But I live here full time right now as a teacher.
Nice. So, if you don't mind me asking, where exactly in Indonesia are you located?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in Jakarta, specifically, so the capital. So it's a city of 10 million people and not a lot of green space.
Okay.
Uh,
So it's quite a busy
Very,
city.
well, yeah, now that things have started to open up here and there's a
Yeah.
lot more activity, it went from being a ghost town for 2.5 months, which is like
Wow.
absolutely crazy for one of the most like chaotic cities in the
Yeah.
world, to like a ghost town. And then now like we're back to like what they're initiating is like the new normal.
Yeah.
But like it's chaos as usual. So
Wow. Wow. So, how long? So, how long have you lived in Indonesia for?
I've been living here for 5 months now.
Okay, nice. That's
Yeah.
really nice. So you mentioned, so you kind of mentioned what you are doing there, but can you tell us, how to explain this? How you moved? So how did you get the current job that you're doing? Did you apply from Canada? Did you go there first and then look for a job? Like, how did you get the current role that you have now?
Yeah, so I'm maybe I should like back myself up. So I'm from Canada. I grew up in the States. So I was actually in the US at the time that I applied for the job,
Mm,
to move to Indonesia. But I've been here before.
okay.
Last year, January, February timing, I had done a 2 week backpacking trip with a friend,
Okay.
and one of our stops was Indonesia. I really liked it and knew I'd love to come back here one day. And in the summer, I'd actually, the summer of 2019, I had done a teaching program called Angloville,
Okay.
that's hosted in Europe, and just like backpacked for 2 months teaching English, like doing this summer program. And it really inspired me. I was just like, you know what, maybe like teaching English, this might be a really great way for me to continue moving and traveling
Yeah.
around the world and just keep going. And so I was looking in the fall, and honestly, like I wasn't heavily looking.
Okay.
I was actually writing some pieces and some posts for my blog about teach abroad opportunities and like job boards, things like that.
Mm.
And as I was coming across all of this information and putting it together for like my readers, this job opportunity popped up, and I was like, let me just like look at it. And I was like, okay, it's Indonesia, like I could see myself going back, I'd like to. And honestly, it was a spur of the moment decision to just apply for it.
Yeah.
And the following week I had an interview, and 2 weeks
Nice.
later I was offered and I accepted a job to move to Indonesia.
Oh,
So it's like all happened, I think, within about the span of 3 weeks from the
wow.
application to like actually accepting the job.
Wow, that's amazing. So it was literally let me apply. If I get it, I'll go kind of thing, kind of like let's see how this goes. That's really
I wasn't 100% committed to like moving abroad or like doing it just yet. But some other things had kind of come up and situations had changed for me back home. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I applied for this opportunity and now I have it. So might as well run with it.
run with it. Right. And you mentioned Angloville. So what countries were you in doing Angloville?
I did Poland, Hungary, and Malta.
Nice. That is
Yeah.
so nice. That's a nice variety of countries, actually. Different kind of
It was
landscapes,
really
different, yeah.
nice. Yeah. Yeah. You had to hack for different weather for sure.
Yeah, completely different. Nice. So you've kind of answered my next question a bit. Kind of why did you move to Indonesia or Jakarta in particular? But you kind of mentioned you went there before, you saw a job offer, and you kind of just applied. It wasn't like you had planned it 6 months before. I am going to Indonesia. So you kind of answered the question. So I have a question about your should I say career history. How did you get into teaching English? So did you get a TEFL, or how did you go about doing that? If we could get kind of like a background on what you studied and then up till now.
Sure. So I was, oh gosh. Okay. So since I was about 4, my dad claims I was 4. I claim I was 8. I'm going to take his word for it because obviously I remember less when I was like younger.
Yeah.
But when I was around 4, I basically was hard set on becoming a veterinarian.
Okay.
And so like literally like hard set. In high school, I did volunteer programs. I worked at an animal. I like was very involved in all of the sciences. I practically lived in the science department because I took 2 or 3 classes every single semester that were science based. So I love science, really got into it. Like that was definitely my passion. I knew I was on the right track there. And while I was in high school, because I was doing so well and really had such a strong passion for the sciences, I actually became a science tutor, and among other things. So I became a science tutor. I did an independent study. I TA'd for some of my teachers while in high school. And I hosted review sessions after school, like practice workshops, things like that to like help my peers. And like, I guess that was the first like introduction for me of like some aspect of teaching, because I was tutoring, I was getting involved, I was helping explain things that, you know, the way that the teacher explained it wasn't clicking. So I was finding other ways to help make the information more palatable, more relatable, more understandable.
Yeah.
So I kind of kept going. I went out. So I grew up just outside of the Detroit area when I was like middle school, high school, time frame, elementary, kind of like basically all of my like K through 12 in some sorts education was in the United States.
Okay.
So I was in Detroit area, and then I moved out to Colorado for school to study zoology and chemistry. Again,
Wow.
on the on the veterinary path.
Yeah,
My dream, like I tied travel, actually, like seriously, like this just shows like the ambitious child that like I was. Like I wanted to be, and I knew from such a young age, I wanted to be a wildlife veterinarian that worked and lived on conservation and rehabilitation centers all over the world.
wow.
Like I knew I wanted to travel, and I had not really traveled a lot as a kid. So like just intertwining everything. And when I got to university, I was still hardcore into my sciences, but I continued tutoring. I remember like my first year, I was the floor mom, if you will. Like I stress bake and cook, so I would like cook in the kitchen, and then like my floor mates would be like, hey, like what's for dinner. So I kind of, and then just kind of picked up tutoring, like helping, because I was studying chemistry and zoology. I was already ahead of my peers because of my credits that I walked in with. So I was helping my peers with their chemistry and their biology and their math homework. So again, like in a tutoring aspect. And I continued with it. And in my 3rd year of university, everything changed for me, honestly. I was recommended a job to become a university hired peer educator. And I helped educate students in biology, cell biology, biochemistry, and physiology. So like I was like a go-to tutor for them too. So I was like, again, right back into the education portion. yeah, I kept coming back to education, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. But the more I got into it, and the more I found this passion for travel, I started traveling more with my parents in university, and then like I studied abroad, and I just like sat back and I was like, okay, like becoming a veterinarian is not going to help me travel right now.
Yeah.
And I want to travel right now. Like I need something that gives me this opportunity.
Yeah.
So I hemmed and hawed, and I was like, okay, like, do I become a flight attendant? Do I become a teacher? Do I, like go teach abroad? I had all of these options in my head. And last year I came across Angloville.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, like a great opportunity to get me to travel around Europe. I get my accommodation and food paid for.
Okay.
And I just had to pay for certain things, and they paid for my TEFL.
Okay.
So it was like a win-win. I was like, all right, like let's put this all together. Let's try it out. If I don't like it, I'll find something else. And I really enjoyed it. I remember talking to my mom, talking to my partner at the time. I was just like, I'm having a blast. Like, I think this is something that I want to do. Like, as much as I for the past 3 years have had no idea what I wanted to do, I think this might be something that I'll enjoy. And just kind of kept going from there. I had been tutoring off and on with a lot of students as a private tutor after university, and kind of just kept moving around from job to job. I continued working at a veterinary clinic just to see if veterinary medicine was still something I wanted to do. So I kept a lot of my options open. And in July of 2019, I quit my job at the veterinary hospital. And that's when I went to Europe to just basically be like, all right, like if I don't quit my job at veterinary medicine, I probably will never leave the field, and I will never like push myself to get off my ass and go do it, go get into the world again. And it honestly did. I really loved it. Kept tutoring, kept teaching. I teach online. I teach English online now for another like company, VIP Kid.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying that so far as well. And I like teaching English. I never thought I would ever see myself teaching English, but here I am, and I can't complain. Like it's provided me a lot of opportunities so far, minus, the current global situation.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. So you've kind of always had, I guess, I don't want to say a foot in education, but you've also always kind of tutored, peer tutored, kind of had that kind of thing going on. So that's really, really cool. That's really cool. So I have a question. Did you go directly from Europe to Asia, or did you go back?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I went home. So I went from Europe back home, and I was back home kind of like figuring out what I wanted to do. Still like teaching online, tutoring, things like that.
Okay.
Honestly trying to figure out what on earth I was going to do with my life. And I had already had a trip to South America and Antarctica planned in December. So I was like, I have to be back for that. But if I take on a job, it'll have to like start like February. So just to kind of give myself space. And while I was home, it was October, that's when I came across the job opportunity and kind of took a chance with it.
Wow, that's great. And it seems like you kind of went, should I say, in time to not be, I guess, as stressed to move during, if you can move during this current climate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, okay, no, that's amazing. So in Jakarta, how do you get around? What is the transport system like?
One word is chaotic, but another word is fun. I didn't grow up with public transport for where I lived. I lived more in like a middle class, like suburban area. So like, and just outside of Detroit, like Detroit is not a public transport friendly city. It was the motor city. So it was very much built for cars and did not have like necessarily like a very good connection for buses or transit to kind of come through. So I always like knew the car as the transport or the bike. I have used, you know, just my like normal like 15 speed bike to get around sometimes. So for me, like I use train, bus. We have taxi services here. There's like if you're familiar with Uber or Lyft, I know those are like rideshare. So here in Asia, one of the biggest competitors is Grab, and it's a Singapore-based company. It's the same concept, but probably offers like 10 times more than any other like ride share company does. Like you can order, you can go shopping through the app, you can do food, you can do so many different things, which is really nice. And here specifically in Indonesia, we do have Grab, but the monopoly of rideshare is Gojek, which is you can do like a car or you can go on a bike.
Oh, okay.
So, and yeah, so we have like motorbike, like rideshare services, and that's the same with Grab and Gojek, which I really like. It's fun. You get to, you know, you have a driver. Everybody, like, they have to have a license. They're, you know, screened beforehand to make sure that they'll be okay. And they're everywhere, which is awesome. Like, obviously, public transit's the cheapest option, and I honestly like public transit. It's fun for me, but every once in a while I love getting on the back of a motorcycle and just going for a ride somewhere to my destination.
Okay, so that's cool. So I guess it's kind of adapted to like the lifestyle of the country, I guess. Very much. People use motorbikes as a way of public transport, so it's kind of the app considers that. Okay, that's cool. So so we established that you work teaching as an English teacher. So how to explain this? What is your work culture like? But I guess first of all, let's establish like what age group do you teach? Do you teach physically in a school? Is it online, etc.? So maybe let's establish what kind of teaching you do.
Sure. So I don't teach in an institution. I actually teach at a learning center. So we are, unfortunately, I don't get the whole like large breaks, you know, winter or summer or holiday breaks off in that sense. I work all year round, and I think we get like 2 or 3 weeks off in each part of the year. So I am like a year-round language center teacher. I work for a company called EF, English First. They have 2 sections to their company. I am in the teaching section right now, but most people, especially like within the 18 to like 30 age range, are probably more familiar with the EF Education First, which are the tours that they offer all around like Europe and in different parts of the world. So that's like 2 separate parts of the company. And so I work on the teaching side, and so I work from 1 p.m. to about 8 p.m. So it's after school. I do all of my teaching prep. We work Monday through Saturdays, but as a we are considered those of us who are native English speakers, and from outside of Indonesia, we're considered native teachers. So the native teachers only work 5 days a week, and then I also work with quite a few of my co-workers are Indonesian teachers that have passed certain English language exams, and it's probably like, as of right now, it's just me and I think 16 other Indonesian cohorts here. As of right now, we started teaching in classrooms. So we had classrooms. I had 2 classes a day, 5 days a week, and it was very, very chill. Not a lot of work, I would say, but a lot of fun. I really loved working with my students. And with the current situation, we've moved to online teaching. We can't be in the classroom. And as of right now, per like the regulations that Indonesia and especially Jakarta have put through, we're not expecting to actually go back to in-person teaching until potentially January.
To be honest, that does make sense. Although I guess it's a shame you don't have that physical interaction with your students. I
Yeah.
guess it's for the safety of everybody. So it makes sense. And it's good that they have that kind of system in place that you can do that. So that is great. What kind of age groups do you teach? Does it vary?
Oh, yeah. So it does. We teach everything from like pre-kindergarten, so like ages 3 all the way up to high school, about age 18, 19.
Okay.
So I mainly teach right now like elementary through high school. It really depends. I'm like certified to teach all ages within that like K through 12 kind of gap.
Yeah.
I prefer to teach, middle school to high school just because of my experience, and that's where I've spent a lot of my years and background tutoring. I haven't done many like younger aged kids, but I really enjoy teaching the younger kids. But I personally like teach mostly from elementary to high school right now. I don't work on any of the like kindergarten, maybe like first grade kind of age levels right now. Yeah.
Okay. No, that is really cool. And yes, I know EF. I worked years ago as an activity leader in London.
No way. That's
so,
awesome.
For like a summer program. So yeah, I know a bit of it about EF. Okay,
That's really cool.
that is really cool. And I know EF is basically a global company. They're in many countries. So no, that's great. Okay, so so you mentioned what your typical work day is like, but is there a difference in work culture, like in comparison to, I guess you can compare it to either Canada or working during Angloville kind of, or let's compare it to what you normally know. So work culture from home in comparison to Indonesia. Is there a difference in terms of colleagues, even students?
Work culture, I guess, is maybe a little bit different in a lot of ways, but I don't have necessarily anything like I can't compare teaching to back home to teaching here.
Yeah.
Because I've only really ever tutored. I've never actually taught in a proper institution back home.
Okay.
This is like my first time like officially teaching.
Okay.
But in the work colleague aspect, like it is a little different. Like how do I kind of put it? So because we don't work the normal like 9 to 5 or let's just say like the school times, if you will, like 7 to like 2 or 7 to 3, we work in the evening. So a lot of the work culture is, in a sense, like once we are finished working, like everybody goes home, everybody has families, everybody has kids, people who are a little bit older than I am, they've already started families, like, or they live at home with their parents. So like right after work, I mean, you're finishing at 8:00 and then it takes an hour and a half, 2 hours on a Friday because of traffic to just get home via public transport. So there isn't always enough time to connect outside of work. So most of us do a lot of our connection while we are lesson planning. We'll like chill in different rooms and we'll be able to chat, kind of get that experience. We're very connected, which I think is really nice. Like we're sharing ideas. Like if someone has a question, we're always working together to kind of like help each other, like come up with fun games and creativity. I'm definitely the odd one out. Like I grew, not just because I'm a foreign teacher, but like I grew up always making my lunch. Like, and not buying it. And like the odd thing is that here, in some ways, like it's actually cheaper to like buy yourself a meal, because the street food is sometimes cheaper than like you trying to like go out, buy groceries and then cook yourself. Plus it saves so much time, and time here is super important, especially to my coworkers and the people here. Like you're busy, you're working all the time, and not having to worry about cooking a meal and having the stress of that extra time and losing that time. Like they just want something, it's already made, done with, here's the money, like let me like enjoy this, so then I can go work, I can go home. Whereas like I would come to work with like my lunch made, like with my like lunch bag, because that's just what I knew. It was very like, it was very different to kind of get used to that culture of, you know what, just like come to work without eating anything. And then just go down a couple levels, and just go pick something out, which is also different. I've never worked in a mall before, and my learning center is in a mall, so busy traffic, like moving around. It's interesting. It's definitely different, which I like.
Nice. Okay, cool. No, that is definitely interesting. So what kind of accommodation do you stay in? Is it like a flat? Is it like a house share? What kind of accommodation do you stay in?
Yeah, so I live in a flat. I live in a studio. I picked it out. So they gave me options. What kind of work is like work? My job has like certain contracts with certain places, and I honestly didn't know it at the time. They just gave me options for like, here are some places you can rent, pick one, and then we will get it ready for you for when you come. So I picked one, and then they gave me that, you know, accommodation. I first started out in a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was expensive, just like for me, but at the time it was like myself and then one other native speaker, and he was from the UK, but he lived on his own, was currently in a relationship. So kind of house sharing, one, isn't exactly a thing very much here when you are not related in some sorts. And like I asked that to work. I was like, well, are there other teachers that I could like share accommodation with? Like, is there kind of, and they were like it was very like much like a no. That's not an option. We're not doing that. So it posed a little bit of difference, because I was so used to like, like it'll cut costs, you know, even though things are cheap here, because we don't make a lot of money. It's a lot easier when you have to pay even less to worry about like monthly rent and utilities and things like that. So I moved out of my 2-bedroom, and I was like, I need something cheaper, smaller. Like 2-bedroom is just too much space for like one person. I don't know what to do with the space. And I downsized to a studio, and it's quite, I wish the kitchen was bigger because I love to cook. But it's actually like, I could use a little bit more space though.
Wow. So you had too much space, and now you've downsized to not enough space.
I know. Yeah, I could use a little bit extra space because my bed's too big.
Okay. Wow. So that's interesting. So they help you find accommodation before you arrive.
Yeah, my particular job had set me up with accommodation, and they paid for like the first month. They took care of like everything for adjustment, just in case if anything happens, you don't like it, we need to find somewhere else, and that part. So if I had known beforehand that like they had already set up certain things, I think I might have, in like, you know, hindsight 2020, I would have, you know, done some searching myself and actually probably find something maybe a little bit more central to work, but also like connected with like more transportation, because I have to take multiple different types of transport just to get to work, and then I have to take multiple types of transport just to get into like downtown. So finding something that would have been cheaper, more accommodating, like with location, but still would have been like really accessible. I would, you know, knowing that for next time, I think when I like connect with another job, like when I choose to leave and go somewhere else, knowing that already will be super helpful. Just be like, all right, if I know I'm going to stay here for a year or a long period of time, like I'm going to try and do some of my own research as well to make sure I'm accommodated the way I want to be.
Okay. And on average, how long does it take you to get into work?
Half an hour, 45 minutes.
Okay.
I walk to the train station It's a quick hop on the train, and then I take a bus for the rest of the way, about 20 minutes on the bus. I honestly like it.
Okay.
Again, like, didn't grow up with public transit, so like I'll put on my earphones and I'll just kind of like watch the world go by, and I'll listen to a podcast or listen to some music. I'll read a book. I used to bring a book to work and just kind of like sit on the train and read on my way to work, which I loved. It was like a really nice like breath of fresh air, if you will.
But do you know what? I think it's great that you get those kind of experiences, because you actually kind of get to see how everything works in the city, how everything kind of goes. Which you won't necessarily get that kind of experience in a taxi or even a motorbike. Like, you're on the train, you're on the bus, you're kind of among. Yeah. So that's cool. So I'm trying not to get too specific here, but would you say let's just say Jakarta, because I guess it is the capital, would you say rent is proportionate to accommodation? I know you can get different types of accommodation, but let's just say for a studio flat, would you say that in terms of salary and accommodation and just general living costs, it kind of works out? Or would you say it's expensive to live there? Or
where I live, it's considered now, like, I don't know if I would consider it like this, but just because of like where I live and the GDP here, but they call it affordable housing.
Okay.
So I make approximately, now like the past few months I've made, because of everything going on, I've actually made less money. They've cut a lot of my salary. Okay. But if I was making my full salary, I'd be making just under like $900 a month.
Okay.
Now my rent for my studio apartment and like utilities and like internet is roughly just over $200. So, you know, I do have that. And then groceries, if you will, food, such like that, is about $150 to $200 a month.
Okay.
So I basically, about 50% of my monthly salary goes towards living.
Okay.
And the other 50%, like, I can use for what I would like, and in that sense, yeah.
Okay.
And then just like comparing it to everything though, like, I think it's actually like, in a lot of ways it's very different. There's a huge disparity here. Like in downtown Jakarta, you can find flats that are like worth like buying a flat in like London or New York, because they're that expensive. They're prime property, executive suites, things like that. And then you will find places like as dirt cheap as maybe like $100 a month, and it's, you know, very minimal. It's in like some of the more hurting areas, or you'll find like a house full of like multiple families. Like, it's a huge disparity just within this one large city, and it's very unique to see and experience on a daily.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I feel like there's a lot of so like cities or countries around the world that experience similar kind of disparities. That is so interesting. And I'm going to ask you, in your accommodation, do you have like a, how to explain it? Do you have an oven in your kitchen? And is your bathroom like I don't want to say normal, but is your bathroom like a wet room? Or is there like a cubicle, a shower cubicle, or a bath? I'm just curious.
No, it's a good question. So no oven, no such thing. Thankfully, which is a huge perk to my apartment, when I moved in, the owner had a toaster oven in my current apartment, which is such a huge plus. So this month, because like as of right now, I'm just kind of very much taking it on, like, I think I'm staying, I'm not going to lose my job, like we're going to keep kind of moving forward. I picked up baking supplies because, again, like I love to bake and cook. That is such like a huge pastime for me and such a joy, and also helps like when I'm stressed. Every once in a while you get stressed still. So having the toaster oven has been really helpful. But unfortunately, like it's hot outside, and then my apartment doesn't get very cold. So like if I heat up the toaster oven or if I turn on the stove, like my entire like room is just like cooking. So it's hard sometimes to, you know, get it the right temperature all the time. But for the shower, so it is a wet room. Like there's no cubicle. Like the toilet and the shower are right next to each other. And like I'm used to it with a lot of my travels, and I actually don't mind it. I feel like I have to clean a lot more though, just because like it's an odd setup. So like my air conditioner unit drains into my bathroom.
Okay.
So I have that coming through, and then like you have the toilet, and then you have the shower and the water heater, and then like everything just kind of, you know, you're going in, you're going out of it, all that kind of stuff. So I have to clean it a lot more often. And there's no fan. There's no like fan to kind of like aerate. There's actually like a small slit to the outside. So like it's hot in the bathroom, so then you get mold that starts to accumulate if the water remains. So it's very different. I don't mind it. It's actually kind of easy that you don't have to like worry about cleaning 4 walls of a shower and cleaning the bathroom. It's just all one.
Yeah, no, that is cool. I'm curious because so I taught English in South Korea for a year. So so I'm always curious about people's living. Like the kitchen does not have so when I lived there as well, the kitchen didn't have an oven. So I also bought a toaster oven, stuff like that. I'm curious. It's good to know because people may not necessarily know what I guess a studio flat or an average. I mean, other homes, bigger homes may have it, but in a studio flat, more than often, you're not going to have an oven. So
no, and even in the 2-bedroom apartment that I was in, and some of the other flats that I've seen here, at least in like my apartment complex, like ovens do not come with the apartment at all. They don't. It's just not a thing. Like if you want an oven, like you're gonna have to go to a higher end place.
Basically. Oh, okay, that's cool. So when you moved to Indonesia, did you feel welcome? What were the locals like? Did you feel kind of welcome in the country?
So I would say, especially like with my cohort and my coworkers, so like when I got off the plane, like a few of my coworkers, one of my like PAs and then our head teacher from our learning center, like both of them came and picked me up. So I had like a very nice welcome party, if you will, that like I knew someone that I was going to be working with, having fun with. It wasn't, you know, like I got into the country and had to figure out how to get to my apartment or anything. So I met quite a few of like my coworkers. They showed me my apartment. They took me around. So in my like apartment complex, and this is very, very common here. So like where there's like very large apartment communities and complexes, there's a mall either underneath all of the buildings or just next to. So we have a mall right underneath all of our buildings here. And so they walked me through the mall. They took me out to dinner, like helped me like learn a little bit of some like basic keywords of the language, certain things like that, which was very helpful. So then like I felt very welcome with my community for like my job, which was really nice. Like if I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time here, like I'd like to at least, you know that I have a connection. I have a small community that I can work with and go to. With the locals in general, it's always funny. Like I'm very white. So I stick out like a sore thumb in a lot of Asian, especially Southeast Asian countries, because I'm very white compared to like here in Indonesia, like they are darker skinned, have a deeper color and melanin. So I'm very different, and I'm a woman with no hair. So I got double the stares, which is like some people find it off-putting, and I challenge it, I welcome it. In some points, like if they're blatantly staring, like I will just purposely stare back. Just be like, you're making me feel uncomfortable, so let me make you feel uncomfortable too. And like, let's exchange this. It's kind of how I just kind of keep going. Like I disregard like any of the catcalling, and it's just like, you know what, obviously like you know that I'm different, you know that, you know, the fact that I am here in your country, it implies that I have some sort of access or opportunity, wealth, privilege. So it's very apparent to me, like I very much recognize it, and it's very apparent to them, so that some people try to use it in their benefit. And a lot of times I just ignore it and continue, like, I'm going to work, I'm going shopping, like I'm doing my everyday things, so please leave me alone. So like it wasn't necessarily an unwelcome feeling, it was just something to get used to. Being, you know, like at home, like even though I had no hair, I still would get stares, but it wasn't consistent. Like I wasn't very different. I wasn't a shock to the system for people. So it got kind of used to just like getting stares all the time. And now I think it's very much just like I don't see it as often. I'm not acknowledged, or at least I don't acknowledge it. I just go about my day and they go about theirs.
Okay, cool. So you keep it moving, but they are friendly.
Oh no, definitely. Like I could walk up to, even in the market. So like before we had to shut down for lockdown, there was a local market that I used to go to, and I started learning Bahasa to like translate and, you know, be able to communicate with the local people so I could get my local produce. And I love markets. You know, I'm supporting local farmers and businesses, but also like it's a really great chance to get to know locals. I'm not a big grocery store person when I'm traveling, because like I lose so much of that personal connection. So they'd be really friendly. Like even when I was trying to bargain, like I knew what certain price I should be getting for certain foods. Like I could communicate, and like people were very helpful, very accommodating. Like I need this, I need to get to that. And they would help point me in the direction. If I ever felt lost or, you know, couldn't communicate, there was always someone who could help. And, you know, we could get out Google Translate and try typing, like I'll go English into Indonesian and show them, and then they'll type Indonesian back to English. And it's fun. They're very friendly, they're very helpful. I've never actually felt unsafe, or like completely unsafe, even walking alone, going about. A bit of the culture shock is, you know, one, I'm a white woman traveling alone, but two, I'm a woman traveling alone. And here in this culture, it's like not, you know, like a woman shouldn't be alone. You should have something, either a friend or a partner, someone with you. So it definitely led to a lot of caution from my own coworkers of, you know, like, don't, you know, like they'd be very surprised if I went to the market by myself in the early mornings to get food, or if I went and explored like downtown Jakarta. I don't know if it was off-putting or if it was more of like a sense of caution from them, just because of the culture and the way that society has kind of recognized the norm, and I'm very much breaking it. So that's always interesting to play with, I think. But I don't think I've ever felt unwelcome.
Okay, that's super interesting. So is there I'm going to assume there is, but is there an expat community in Jakarta? And if so, have you connected with the expat community? And how did you find them?
Okay, so the expat community is huge. Humongous, but the teaching expat community is actually small. Most people that are here in Jakarta are here for business. The expat community is very largely business oriented. Jakarta is a business, like a lot of downtown are businesses, pharmaceutical companies, finance companies. So most of the expat community here are business related. I would say like a very large proportion. Teaching is not as big. I would say it's definitely one of the minor portions of the expat community, but a really great connection for me was actually Facebook.
Okay.
Which is interesting because the majority of the community here actually prefers to use Instagram as their mode of communication. So it's Instagram and WhatsApp. Are the two most popular ways to communicate with friends, family, like chatting, whatnot. But I guess like Facebook is actually a better way of connecting with communities here, which I found all over the world is very, very similar. Like if you need to find like an expat community, or I found dancing communities because I like to dance, and you can connect with different places all over the world and find out on events. So I'm part of 2 different expat groups for here specifically in Jakarta, and they're always asking stuff, especially right now with regulations starting to lighten up and travel seems at least somewhat possible even within the country, because we weren't actually allowed to travel within the country during the month of Ramadan. So all of May, transport was completely shut down. So as things are starting to open up and people are trying to like either get out, come back in, move to another island, do such things, a lot of the communication about that has been very popular.
Wow, that's really cool. So I'm going to ask about making friends in Jakarta. How has it been easy to make friends, and kind of has it been easy, and do you have any tips for anyone? And this can be with other foreigners or with with Indonesians.
Yeah. So most of my friends, I would definitely say, are my coworkers. So like the first, and that's, I guess, not necessarily like out of, it was more so just convenience and location. So the first month that I was really here, I was adjusting to my new location, figuring out what I needed to do, getting settled in. And then there was another teacher that came through. She's also from Canada, and she and I connected, and we're actually like, she lives in the building next to me. She actually lives in the old apartment that I used to live in. And she and I really connected and hit it off, and we've both been helping each other. So I helped her get accustomed and get used to like the transport system and like living here in Jakarta. And she's my social life in that sense. So like she really helped me like kind of like get out. We did some exploring, things like that. And then pretty much like a month and a half into my living here was when the lockdown happened, and you weren't able to move, you weren't able to go around, you shouldn't be going out. So the friendship, finding friends, meeting people kind of went out completely out the window. So that piece is definitely like was a lot more difficult. But some good resources that like I know are really great for finding friends for out here, because my coworker who I hang out with, now that things are starting to open back up, we've been going out. Like last night we went out with some friends that were Indonesian that we had met, and just like having a good time, going out for food, drinks, things like that. We meet through Instagram, or there's an app called Bumble.
Okay, I know that.
Which it's like you can use it for dating, but you can also use it for friends. So that's like been really cool to kind of connect with people and just, make a friendship, go out, find someone to like do something with and connect with. That's probably like the top app that I know that she uses and really likes. And I'm going to be looking into that more myself as like now that, I have a lot more access to get out and move around.
Okay, cool. That's cool. No, that makes sense. So you had a friend that kind of took you along, if that makes sense. Which I have heard actually. I have heard someone else say I made friends with someone else who was pretty much a socialite and knew loads of stuff, so I went along with her. So no,
it's helpful to have a socialite extroverted friend when like as myself, like I'm very introverted, and like I try to make friends organically. Like I'm not one to like make friends online, and it's just never like, I love the in-person organic connection, and because it wasn't happening, you kind of have to find other ways to find friends.
No, that's super cool. So I have a question. So you mentioned about learning learning phrases of the language. Are you trying to learn the language? Can you speak any parts of the language or no?
So I was learning with quite a bit of intent to practice and get it down. And, because I'm contracted here for a year, I'm like, well, if I'm going to live here, I want to learn the language and I need to learn the language. English is not widely spoken even among some of the younger generation. It is taught in schools and is a requirement for the students, but some people don't go to school, don't have access to education because of financial reasons. So like communicating with any of the generations that are here, just in my daily life, even like if I want to converse with a Gojek driver of like where I need to go, you need Bahasa. Like English is not you have to learn. And it almost feels very wrong for me to just live here for a year and just assume that I can get by with English, because you can't. You really can't. It's, that privilege should not exist here and in so many other places, that like English is my privilege, but it does not work. It will not get me anywhere. And it's very like rude and ignorant to think that like I could get by. And I very much challenge myself when I travel to learn the language, at least phrases, helpful phrases to get by, ask people. And they want you to learn the language. They help you learn the language. Sometimes I can stop someone and be like, how do you say this? And we practice it, and then I continue going on. So I was learning more avidly in my first couple months here. I was continued learning through, I think, like March, with like, even though we were in lockdown, I was still very adamant, and then it just kind of like stopped. I was just kind of like, if I'm not leaving my place, I'm not going out, I can't explore, I can't use the language. So I kind of lost a lot of the drive to learn it. But now that things are opening back up again, I've started using it again. I'm, brushing off those like dusty pages, if you will, and trying to go back to learning it. And I'm thinking about like taking up like a tutor and like doing like a language exchange, someone who needs practice like learning English, and then someone who can work with me to learn Bahasa, and like that, make a friend that way, now that things are opening up, and just meet every week or something like that. That's some way that I would like to continue learning the language.
Okay, no, that's good. I think it's good that you're trying to learn the language. I feel like it's always good I think it's just respectful, I guess, to try to learn the language of the country you're in, rather than assuming that they'll just speak English. I think that is really, really good. And also, I think it helps you to connect with people a bit better. And people always appreciate you if you learn their language. So I think it is great. That is really good. So you mentioned street food before, but what is obviously you won't be able to tell me all the dishes that you've seen or that are there, but what is the food like the gist of the food, and if you have a favorite dish?
All right. Ooh, okay. So spicy is the word that I will use. They love their spice, and it's so good. They really love throwing spice into almost everything that they eat. Their dishes are rice heavy for a lot of things. Even if it's a soup, you eat it with rice. They're rice heavy meals. One of my favorites is Nasi Koreng, which literally translates into fried rice. And it's their version with some vegetables and cooking oil, and it's like fried on a nice, like really big, like, so if you can imagine like a small like wooden street cart, and it has like a propane container attached to it with like this little ring, and you turn on the propane, and they put like this metal wok to hold onto the ring, and they cook all of the food. So whatever you want, like certain carts will serve you like certain desserts, and certain will do like fish and meats. I'm a vegetarian, so I unfortunately don't eat a lot of the meat dishes, but every once in a while I will break vegetarian to try something, because I think it's very important, for at least for myself, to continue indulging in the actual like culture of the food here. And it is like really, really good. I love street food in general. Anywhere I go, like I think it's cheap, but it's also probably some of the best food that I've ever had is street food. But you can get anything from like a vendor street selling bread, fruit, rice dishes, meat, fish. You can find like cookies and desserts. It's honestly like a really cool like compilation of, you'll just see streets lined with these carts, everybody cooking, and then like little tables and like stools all set around, and people just kind of like go up, order, have a seat, and then everybody's just enjoying their food and chatting. It's a really cool culture, and it's a late night culture. So like a lot of the foods between 7 and like 11 p.m. that's when people are eating. They're enjoying their meals. They're coming home from work and just chilling, chatting, having a good time.
No, that's pretty cool. So you mentioned you're vegetarian. I have a question. How has it been easy finding dishes that you can eat? I know you mentioned you break sometimes, but just in general as a vegetarian, has it been easy to find food, or has it been a bit of a struggle or not?
No, it's actually been because I knew certain from previously visiting Indonesia before. I already knew at that time the person that I was traveling with, he was attempting to be vegetarian. So I think he tried it. He was trying it out, and while we were traveling, he was practicing vegetarian. So we picked up quite a few dishes and words of dishes that I knew were already vegetarian. So coming here, like I already knew some words, and then like my coworkers would help me as well. He'd be like, you can eat this, this, and this. Like at certain points I would eat fish. So they showed me a few fish dishes that I could eat. Like a very popular dish is rendeng, which is a very like spicy, flavorful dish, and it's usually cooked with meat, but you can get the sauce and the dish with fish. So they had like helped me order that, so I got to try the dish just with a fish instead of like the normal meat. So it's helpful like with my coworkers, but I'm also finding like if I find someone that I know like will cook chap chai or nasi koreng and will like use egg instead of chicken, then it's like very easy for me to like really pick things out. And then with living at home for the past 3 months, like it's very easy for me to just kind of cook my own food too.
Okay, that's great. So what is one thing that you've learned about the culture while living in Jakarta?
That's a good question. One thing that I've learned, kind would be like a really great like way to phrase it. Like even though like some people will be like they're harassing me, they're doing this, because some people can think that like the attention is off-putting, but I've found it very kind. And if you approach it with, you know, a smile and, you know, you say no thank you, or like shake your head, or you actually use the language, people are very kind. They're willing to help you. They're willing to even attempt, like they'll apologize. They're like, I'm sorry, I don't speak English. And then that's my indication of, you know, all right, let's get out Google Translate. Like, let's see if we can still communicate with each other. Or they themselves bring out Google Translate and try to like explain to me. So they're very adaptive. They're very kind. They're connective, which I think is really cool. It's a very traditional culture. So living with the family, connecting with family, like family is such a huge piece. And I very much connect with that because like I'm, you know, 16,000 kilometers away from my family, and being in a community where like they really look out for you. They always check in to see how you're doing, if everything's okay. I really love that because it's like I know that I'm not alone, even though like I'm alone in my apartment, like very far away. I don't feel alone as much as I thought I would, and it's thanks to the culture and the people.
Nice. So it's very community based. It's very,
Yeah.
that's really lovely. So what do you really enjoy about living in Indonesia currently? You can say one or two things that you really love about currently living there.
Oh, the food. Hands down, the food. It's so good. It's opened up my eyes to certain things. Like I've started even at home, like learning to cook some of the meals here, trying some of the soups. I add hot sauce to a lot of my meals now, and I used to at home just a little bit, but I feel like I love heat more. Like it's definitely taught me to, like, even though it's hot outside, like you just got to keep sweating.
Yeah.
You know, like the flavor, certain things, like it feels wrong to not have hot sauce or certain spices in it. And I love the food here, whether it's street food, like going out to maybe like a local restaurant, going out to eat, making it at home. It's probably one of my favorite. My second would be the people. Okay. For sure. Like again, like the communicative, the community based, very like welcoming. They're very friendly people, and it's awesome just to connect, and they want to connect with you, which I think is great.
Oh, that's lovely. So what one or two things have been the major challenges while living there? Have you had any challenges while living there? Maybe one or two?
Well, putting COVID-19 aside, because that just made everything a challenge for everyone, and especially living in a brand new country and like having one expectation and that completely going out the window. I think the language has made it a little bit difficult for me. So my first language is English. Technically, like my second language is Italian and my third language is Spanish. Okay. But I speak Spanish more than I speak Italian. Okay. So when I travel, and also previously, like all of December and then part of January, I was in South America. So I was using Spanish a lot. So like here, when I go to say something, it goes English, Spanish, oh shit, English, Bahasa. Like it's a really big challenge for me to not want to like go to Spanish first, because that's my instinct to just be like, okay, like Spanish, and it's like no, like I need to, or like I try in my head, I'm thinking in Spanish, and I'm like no, like we need to go back. And figure that out. And so that has been a challenge for me, just to adapt to putting a fourth language into my vocabulary and just like my repertoire of just like, okay, like how do I start thinking in Bahasa and get myself to like not go to other languages as a default.
That's amazing. I think it's amazing that you speak so many other languages. So the Italian and Spanish, is this something you learned, or is this part of like your family?
Yeah, so the Italian's home. My dad's side is Sicilian. So I didn't grow up specifically with Italian in the household. Like it wasn't necessarily like my second full language, but I grew up like there are words that I still only know in Italian. Like I could not translate them into English, and I can, it's just odd. Like I say it and people are like, what? I don't understand. And I'm like, I don't know how to describe it in English, because I don't know what it is. Yeah. But I grew up with it from like my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. I spent an entire summer, or not an entire summer, like 3 weeks with my dad in Sicily, visiting family, using and practicing Italian. And I still speak with my nonna, my Italian grandmother, and we use Italian to communicate. So I cannot say that I am communicative. I still feel like more like I'm a beginner, because I've never really had fully like an education and haven't been completely immersed in Italian long enough for me to really take on the language. And Spanish was school. So probably from like kindergarten all the way through university, like off and on, I was taking Spanish. And then for 2 years, I was in a relationship with a Peruvian. So Spanish was like our second language. Like we would text, call, chat. So like I was consistently using Spanish.
I think that's amazing. Oh, so you can add a fourth language in your repertoire.
I hope so.
That's amazing. Okay, so did you? I feel like we touched on this. You touched on this a little bit, but culture shock. So, did you experience culture shock, and if so, how?
It's actually funny because my students on Thursday, we were having a conversation and they were like, what culture shock did you have when you came here? And I actually found it very hard to answer the question because one, I had been to Indonesia before.
Yeah.
So I already knew what to expect. Whereas like my coworker who I hang out with, who's like, we're very close friends. She had never been to Indonesia, wasn't very verse and travel, so this was a very huge shock to her of like everything, but I already knew what to expect. I knew a few phrases of the language. I understood like how like transport and people and the food, and I had traveled a lot before coming to even Indonesia the first time, so I knew to expect. I knew to just not have any expectations, just kind of walk in and continue. But if I was to say the biggest culture shock, I think, is just the fact of living here, is the culture of like women in a sense, you know, like you should be with someone, you shouldn't be going out alone. That individualistic, independent ideology that I grew up with in like Canada and the US, it doesn't always have a place here in the more traditionalistic culture. Some of like my students, like we have conversations about this, which I honestly, like, I love learning about the culture from the younger generation, because it's from like my students, because you actually see the culture shift. They see what their parents have kind of presented, they see what the government is kind of enforcing, but they also see the pop culture, they see world news, they see what's going on, and they themselves are in a more progressive mindset. They're looking for change. Like they would love to, some of them are very much like, no, I would never go out alone, I must have someone, just for their own peace of mind and just for themselves. And some of my students are like, no, like I want to be able to like go out to the mall and go do this and go do that. And I think my ideology of just my own upbringing of that independence very much challenges cultural norms here. And I think that was a huge culture shock for me. Like my coworkers would be like, you went to downtown Jakarta by yourself, you went to the market by yourself, like, are you okay? Like, what do we need to do? And that I was taken aback by it, but I needed to check myself, because I'm like, well, I'm not home anymore. Like, this is a very different culture. Like, I'm respecting it, but also knowing that like I don't need to wait for someone to be there, because I have a lot of that confidence already. But finding that middle ground of respecting and appreciating, but still being able to follow like my own choices in that sense, without, you know, harming or being disrespectful.
Well, that's very, very interesting. That is extremely interesting. No, I think it's great that you're trying to kind of balance it, because you do because you do still want to do the stuff that you would like to do. So now I know that you've kind of traveled a lot before. You kind of did the Angloville, but are you experiencing homesickness in 100%. Indonesia? Okay, and if you so if you are, how so, and how are you kind of managing it or kind of handling it?
Yeah, so I was doing really, really well. And I think it was just, everything was new. I was getting used to like living here. I had, some friends connecting, like in that sense. And to be honest, like it comes back to the current pandemic that's going on. Like, I don't think if I hadn't been stuck in my house for 3.5 months straight, I don't think I would be as homesick. Because I would have been connecting with my own life. I would have been building something here, making friends, going out, doing things like teaching, going out on the weekends and exploring different parts of the country and seeing, doing things. So I think because I lost a lot of that, and then with this new normal, there's a lot more regulations to even like leave certain parts of. So Jakarta is still considered a hot zone with all of the cases, and our cases are still climbing. So to like leave and go to other parts of the country, other islands, there's a lot of paperwork. You have to get tested. There's certain restrictions that are put in. So it kind of deters you from wanting to travel in certain aspects, because you have to go through all of these steps. And this is just how things are going to look. So I have to accept that and kind of keep going. But definitely the fact that like I was stuck in my apartment for 3.5 months, like drove me mad. And I know that it drove a lot of other people mad, all across the world, but also stuck in like a city of 10 million people that turned into a ghost town, and there's not a lot of green space here. So it's not like I could go for a hike. All the trains were shut down, so like I couldn't go 2 hours south and go hiking. I wasn't able to. Like transport wasn't allowed. They had quarantined off Jakarta. You couldn't leave. So if life had been what it had started like, I think I would have been doing a lot better. I think I would have missed home. I love connecting with my parents and connecting with my siblings and my aunts and uncles. But I think the fact that COVID did happen, I found that I actually connected even more with my family. Like connected with family that I honestly, like I only see once a year, maybe once every 2 years. And I saw them every other weekend through Zoom meetings, or I call my aunt in Newcastle and she and I talk every 2 weeks. Just to check in and see how things. So I like it. It's like a nice reminder of home, but I still miss it. It definitely got really hard, and it is still hard in a lot of ways. Like I question whether I should just go home if I'm going to be like stuck teaching for the next 7 months that I'm still living here online. So it's just figuring out my next steps and how I can make it more accommodating for myself too.
But I guess you mentioned things as kind of opening up a bit, so you can still kind of go out and do a few things, maybe not as much as you could have done before, but a few things. I guess the current climate does make everything just a lot more difficult in general. So wow, well, you're doing well. So
thanks.
Well done. So I guess in normal circumstances, let's say, if someone was considering moving to Jakarta, what are 1 or 2 things that they need to know or they should consider before deciding to move to, let's just say specifically Jakarta?
Get all the information up front.
Okay.
And I say that in a sense, like with a grain of salt. Like I definitely walked in like with some information, and then, like it's not necessarily treated as a need to know basis, but it's almost just like, you should know this information, but we're not actually going to tell you until you ask the right question.
Okay.
And it's not hiding in a sense. I don't believe it's like blatant hiding of information and resources, but I think it's just it's kind of like a need to know, like when you feel like you need to know, we'll let you know. But we don't necessarily need to give it to you up front. And that's something that, like, when I first moved here, I didn't have Wi-Fi in my apartment, excuse me, set up, which that's something that, like, when I like go to move to like my new job, I will make sure that like prior to me moving in, like Wi-Fi's installed, everything's set up. Cause I think I went about 5 days, like just having to like use my phone data and like burning through that super quick to like do all my emailing and communicating and, you know, personal hotspot and stuff. But I like had started writing on my laptop for like, you know, how to get a job in Jakarta, how to like with my company and things. And one of the things that I like wrote a whole list of questions. Like these are like the 105 questions that you need to be making sure you ask, like, where's the apartment? Where is this? Like get all of the information as much as you, even though you think you might not need it, it's going to make your life, if this is your first time ever moving abroad, ever moving to just like Indonesia, to Jakarta, knowing as much information prior to even getting here is going to be extremely helpful. Like even knowing, I didn't even ask, they just said someone will be at the airport to pick you up. I didn't have a name, I didn't have a face, I didn't have a picture. I just kind of like went out blindly, and that might be okay. Like for me, I was just like, all right, I'll figure it out. Just because I've had a lot of travel experience, whereas like my coworker, was not very appreciative of like the lack of information. Just I think it was, you know, that expectation that everything can be laid out for you and shared. And if you're not used to everything being given to you in that, like in an information standpoint, you're going to know all the facts A through Z. Ask the questions.
Okay, so
definitely ask the questions.
I guess, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, because you want to be prepared. You kind of want to know what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
You want that peace of mind. So that makes sense. Okay, so you're currently in Indonesia. You've done a bit of traveling in like other countries in Europe. Would you want to move abroad again? And if so, where in the future? If so, do you have any ideas kind of where, maybe a continent or?
Yep. Oh yeah. That's so I have officially called myself a full-time traveler. I have no intention of going back home unless I like absolutely cannot bear it anymore with the current situation. But plans are to continue either living, I've got a few options. I'd like to move to Australia for a few years and do the working holiday visa and work and live out there and explore. Maybe New Zealand, get out to like some of the Pacific Islands would be beautiful to get out to as well. Southeast Asia, you know, maybe live in Thailand for a few months and teach, Cambodia, Laos, like taking advantage of just kind of, honestly, kind of like doing the world like in a globe aspect, like starting over here since I'm already in Asia, keep in Asia. I've got some plans to go backpacking through India and visiting family in India for 6 months. I'd like to do that, you know, live and work in China, maybe, excuse me, South Korea, and then basically like work my way west.
Okay.
Get into Europe, get into Africa, get back into South America, and then like eventually get home.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Well, I'll be looking to see where you are next. Like, I'll be watching you. That sounds really cool. Okay, so we are wrapping up this conversation, and it's been so nice to like have you just talk to you about your experiences and everything. So where is the best place for people to connect with you? So this could be Twitter, Instagram, your blog, everything. You can basically mention it here, and I will also put it in the description box. So where is the best place to connect with you?
Absolutely. So I think the two best places to connect with me, one, like to kind of like get more in time, real, like what's kind of happening for me in current life would be on Instagram at _the_soul_traveler. And then my blog, which I post a lot of travel stories and experiences, as well as budget travel and backpack travel tips, because that is the lifestyle that I very much use while traveling. And I'll be starting to post a lot more of like the budget resources, but also like the expat experience too, because I know a lot of people are looking to get into that, or at least hoping to get into that, seeing what things kind of change. But yeah, I look forward to, like, please, like, DM me, hit me up, let me know that you want to connect, and please, I'd love to.
Yes.